Welcome to Charter Conversations. I'm Dru Damico, president of Building Hope Real Estate. Today, I'm speaking with Eric Tucker, CEO and founder of Brooklyn Laboratory Schools, and Tricia Forrest. Tricia's with the Urban Projects Collaborative, both are in Brooklyn, New York. Tricia and Eric, hello. How are you today?
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
It's great to be with you here today. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both for joining me and talking about your school, Eric, and your work, Tricia. I'm really excited about this conversation because the plan that you've put in place is very comprehensive from start to finish. I think that you sort of left no stone unturned, and I think our viewers will really benefit from it. So I'm really looking forward to it. Tricia, so how did you get involved with the Urban Project Collaborative, and what is UPC?
So UPC is an owner's rep firm made up of architects, engineers, and other people who've worked within the industry for the last 20, 30 years. The firm was founded in 2014 by Sarah Haga, and I joined in 2015. We work primarily within the not-for-profit, with primarily not-for-profit organizations, so schools, cultural organizations, to some extent religious institutions, mainly mission-driven organizations. And our goal as owners reps is to work with organizations to further their missions through their facilities. And so whether it is working with existing buildings, whether it is renovations or ground up construction, but ostensibly to help organizations achieve their goals through facilities that work. And that's really within the sphere of how we operate, and that's how our relationship with Brooklyn Lab was formed.
Eric, can you tell me about Brooklyn Laboratory Schools?
Brooklyn Lab is a network of free public schools located in downtown Brooklyn. We serve grades 6 through 12. We have 2 middle schools and 2 high schools. We've worked over time to build a durable public institution committed to serving all families and to ensuring that every young person in Brooklyn or around the city has access to preparation for a meaningful adult life.
We're now in the age of COVID, and a few months ago, you started an initiative. You and Tricia started an initiative to create a reentry plan. How did you begin to collaborate around this?
Educators at Brooklyn Lab, like educators around the country, in March and April began to look at what it might mean to reopen school doors this fall.
And so when you contacted Tricia and Urban Projects Collaborative, what was the next step?
What we quickly realized was that it was important for us to listen to and incorporate insights from a range of stakeholders. In order to do that, in order to ensure that we were taking a learning posture and a design posture to the challenges and the complexities of reopening, we decided to conduct a design charrette.
Tricia, real quick, what is a design charrette?
A design charrette is really an intensive study with the professionals in design, architecture and engineering around a solution. And so that really was our process with Lab. Our pre-planning stage was essentially our charrette.
Tricia, so this exercise of this design charrette really was an exercise in design thinking and using design thinking for a reentry plan. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. It was design thinking informed by the community that we serve.
And what partners were involved in your design charrette?
Our design charrette involved Gensler, PBDW, Situ, PSF Architecture, and WXY.
Eric, was it hard to go through this design thinking process while potentially you had a community that was hurting from the effects of COVID?
We quickly identified a prime directive, which was first, do no harm, that learning matters, but that health and safety and well being are building blocks, are preconditions for an appropriate return to school. So we identified that for our school community, just like every other school around the country, the foundation of the community, the foundation of trust is that the school needs to provide a safe space for all children to learn. Many of us involved in the process are parents, and we have to believe that our own children are going to be safe when we drop them off at school, as a kind of gating question, as a baseline criteria, in order to then be curious about the other things that are happening at school. And so we believed that the kind of question, how are we going to create a safe space so that all children can thrive? And how do we ensure that schools have a foundation of health and well-being and of relational safety and trust, which are so critical to ensuring that all members of the school community can thrive and can grow?
How do you define safe?
One, it needs to meet the threshold that it's good enough for our own loved ones. It's good enough for our own families. Second, it's critical that we take into account that school communities don't just touch the students and faculty members in the community. They also impact the kind of broader set of families in that community. A part of what's critical when we talk about preparation for the fall is the acknowledgement that there will still be active community spread in many communities around the country this fall, and that in many ways, the conversation that matters most is the conversation not about how to open school doors in August and September, but about how to reopen schools so that there are systems and processes in place so that school can remain open in October and November when communities are experiencing both a resurgence of COVID-19, as well as, frankly, kind of regular flu season.
With your prime directive and with your architecture and design team, you guys created a toolkit. And the toolkit was 100 pages, right? Of
Right.
what?
Mhm. Of solutions on getting safely into the building, PPE storage, calculating what you would need per person, classroom layouts, classroom capacities given reduced layouts, solutions or potential solutions for physical barriers, placement of desks and chairs and teacher stations and cool down stations in a room and storage. So really just a multifaceted solution of not just getting into school, but then safely operating while you're in school.
One of the things I really love about the toolkit and your plan is that the use of this design thinking approach, you've created a lot of different names for different parts of the process. I was thinking what might be helpful to our viewers is for you to take us almost sort of step by step from the time a student leaves their house or is at home before the start of school to when they get back home, and just tell us how the toolkit sort of treats an urban environment like one in Brooklyn.
So it starts with how the students are getting to school, whether it is by public transportation or via a school bus or taken. So we factor in what their commute looks like. Once they arrive at school, we knowing that yes, for urban schools, especially New York City, entrance points are typically limited. So devising a solution that helps the students get in while maintaining a safe social distance. And so we've come up with a concept that we're referring to as a front porch, where the students would be able to assemble socially distant, have their temperature checked, be assigned PPE, potentially having using that as an opportunity to start the day in instruction or some other activity that would keep them engaged and have them be ready to start the day without focusing too much on the trauma of having to go through this process of having your temperature checked and being pre-screened ahead of going through school. Because again, the emotional well-being of the students are key. Traversing schools, heading directly to class, where they have an opportunity again to go through all the necessary hygiene protocols, get into their, of course, now reduced sized classrooms, socially distant, and having instruction start, a focus on minimizing transition throughout the day to minimize the potential spread, ensuring that there are sufficient markers in the school to help the students maintain distance and practice hygiene as necessary throughout the day. We cover things like bathroom use, structuring the time, how often the spaces need to be cleaned, having things like partitions even at the sinks to minimize contact and ensure we're minimizing spread between students, and having attendance as well throughout to ensure that the surfaces are sanitized throughout use, prioritizing low touch or no touch surfaces as much as possible to ensure that students and faculty and staff are not, in a pre-COVID world, pushing a lever or signing in at the even something as simple as signing in at the reception desk. And so now a way to scan for, temperature and signs of illness ahead of time. So minimizing human contact as much as possible, though that is not what we would like it to be, to ensure that everyone is safe.
How much, going back to the front porch, how much of the day, how is the entry into school? Because really it's when you read the plan, it's pretty interesting to see that, you have these outdoor spaces that are learning spaces, and you briefly mentioned that, but is there a new sort of cadence or timing structure to, when somebody comes into school, how long it's going to take? Now they get to the front door and they run in. What's going to change?
TBDW and Eric actually worked out the math really well on this, because one of the things that we found is without some kind of structure, it would have taken more than an hour or two to get all students into the building. And so what we've done is we've broken it up into cohorts, and we figured, I think, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, socially distant, maintaining a social 6 feet apart, it would take approximately 45 minutes, 35 to 45 minutes to get 100 or to 200 students in the building. So kind of structuring arrival to account for that and ensure safety, right? And between temperature checks and assigning PPE.
It's, I think, important to acknowledge that the day of in the life of a student may differ, based on the mandates of a student's individualized education plan or what their health needs are, and that the answer might be different in August than it is in November. But that ultimately the kind of core questions in the instructional program solutions guide or map, are around how do we ensure adequate staffing to meet the health and safety guidelines? How can we schedule staff to make sure that all students, and particularly students with disabilities, get high quality compliant support and services that they need? And that means that ultimately we need to create and communicate processes that allow for schools to enforce social distancing and have the time to screen students for symptoms before entering schools, and that that they're particularly in America's cities and in more kind of densely populated areas. That process is going to be difficult without a considerable upgrade to the physical space that immediately surrounds the school entrances. And so we believe that front porches are one critical kind of mechanism to ensure that the return to school is safe. And we've been grateful to be working with Urban Projects Collaborative, WXY, Situ, and Urban Umbrella in order to design and then pilot what these front porches can look like.
And you've made this toolkit available to any school that wants to learn more and look at your plan and also provide maybe insight into things that they may be doing that could enhance the plan. Is that true?
Yes, so at equitybydesign.org, we are in a free and open source way sharing all of our kind of versioning, of our preparation materials. We don't think that the plan, right, so the document itself is going to keep anybody safe. But we do think that the preparation process that Brooklyn Lab, Urban Projects Collaborative, and other schools around the city and country can go through, can help ensure that the return to school is safe. That ultimately the work of preparing, of looking at evidence, of looking at guidelines, of kind of understanding what our protocols might be in different circumstances is critical to kind of publish and get feedback on, to refine. We need to be vulnerable enough to share working examples or working drafts early and often, and to both share those resources with experts and with other school operators, and administrators, but also to benefit from taking the time to hear the concerns of faculty members, staff, families, and students, and to understand that underneath the anxiety and the kind of tension around what reopening will look like is an earnest desire on the part of educators and families and students to work together with experts and with folks who have deep experience with facilities operations in order to make sure that our plans start off strong, but get stronger as a result of candid feedback.
I love this idea that the toolkit is equivalent to an open source for software coding, so that you're going to continually update the toolkit over time. And I'm sure you're updating it now, and your team is as we speak. Are there other components, Tricia, of that sort of accompany the toolkit?
The idea, it would provide shade, weather control, and cue control. Also as a tool to establish new rules around engagement and social distancing, helping the students during this period of assessment to reduce anxiety, provide a wayfinding tool, or get them used to this new normal from a wayfinding perspective. It also provides a measure of safety not only to the students but to the community because of the need to queue in order to gain access, and of course, to also help to mitigate noises from the exterior, whether it's the trains or cars over the bridge. Also allows for conversation among staff and students and helps to create a sense of calm in what would otherwise be a chaotic situation. In addition to the front porch, working on what we've started thinking of as a safe school restoration guide. And it was really developed to provide a framework that's grounded in recommendations from relevant governing bodies for a safe return and operation of schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it covers a wide range of topics, such as, provides instructions for setting up a crisis response team, cleaning and disinfecting procedures, on-site health screenings, social distancing strategies, protocols for isolating students, and it bills, students in the event of a presumed positive diagnosis. And it also provides a framework for classroom layout, classroom capacity, guidelines around instruction, especially for students with special needs who require closer contact. So it really attempts to be a comprehensive bag of tools for safe operations once we return to school.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Eric and Tricia. It's been a pleasure. I've really been learning about how complex this is, and I think that educators, school leaders, teachers around the country are just rock stars for having to deal with these conditions and really continue to think about students first, and also the community. And really, you guys have put together something that is spectacular. That is, it's community focused for your school, but it's also community focused for your community and the rest of us. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. We have really been grateful to have the thought partnership and the collaboration of Tricia and her team, and of the design firms, the architecture and design firms who linked arms with our school community to begin to develop solutions that would make Brooklyn Lab safer this fall, but also could have an impact on, hopefully, our city and the way that our country responds. So thank you so much for making time. We're incredibly grateful.
And thank you for viewing and watching Charter Conversations. You can find the information at charterconversations.org that we talked about today. You'll find the toolkit, and also a link to Eric's and Tricia's website, Equity by Design. We look forward to seeing you next time.